Welcome to another episode of I Need a Session. I'm Kim Wilson, your host. If this is your first time joining, this show is all about self-empowerment. I created a safe space for people to share their stories. I believe every human being has a story that is connected to the healing, the growth, or development of another human being. Once again, I have a wonderful show lined up for you. My special guest is Eric Essix. Oh, you are in for a treat. Usually I put music therapy at the front of the episode. This time, I have it at the back of the episode. Eric is going to take us on a late night ride. Yes, it is well worth the wait, so you do not want to miss that. So first, allow me to introduce you to Eric. And 5, 4, 3, 2, hit it. Meet Eric Essix, a standout composer, songwriter, guitarist. Over a period of more than 30 years and 25 full-length album releases, Eric Essix has not only maintained a steady flow of new music that continues to push the boundaries of contemporary jazz throughout his career, he appears to have no intention of stopping. This fact is evident with the release of 9 compositions, all written, arranged, and produced by Essix called Songs from the Deep. This latest effort by Eric revisits the artist's favorite theme, his Birmingham, Alabama Southern roots. It is a project that reveals the soul of the man and his music as he continues to reconcile love for his homeland, its culture, and its people with its history. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Eric Essix. Yay! Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a joy to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, so I always kind of like to go behind the scenes a little bit before we go dive in a little deeper. So,
Sure,
Eric, before we came on to the screen today, what have you been doing today? What was in the background?
Well, I don't know if you can see I'm in my studio, and anytime I come in here, it's hard for me to walk into this room without picking up a guitar. So I just picked up a guitar and was just kind of playing until our interview started.
I see you have a couple of guitars in the background. Eric, how old were you the first time you picked up a guitar?
My grandfather bought my first guitar at age 10. And I had been asking him for that guitar for, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years until we finally broke down and bought it for me. Anytime that I had some free time, I was playing that guitar. That's all I did.
Wow. Well, how did you know it was the guitar, not the trumpet? Not the piano.
It was an easy choice for me. I was about 4 years old and I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show and was just completely fascinated and enamored with them and the instruments that they were playing. I just thought it was so cool. Even at 4 years old, I knew that was the instrument I wanted to play. And then I also saw guitar players in my church. And so that gave me a more of an up close and personal look at the instrument and sound of the instrument. And it felt right to me. But when I picked up the guitar for the first time, it just instantly, I gravitated towards that instrument.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so at what point did you start like writing music and learning how to arrange and compose and all of that?
Yeah, so much later, of course, in my late 20s, I began to explore actually writing music that I've been hearing in my head. And then at age 29, actually, I went to Berklee College of Music. I got a scholarship to go to Berklee. And that's when I really started to develop as a composer and writing music and producing music and making records. And at that time, I'd already had 2 records out. And by 2018, I had 25. And it's what I really love to do. I love spending time in the studio and creating.
You mentioned right before you came on, you were playing the guitar. So has that been like your work, your hobby, and your everything music, your go-to?
Yeah, when I went to Berklee in 1990, before I went to Berklee, I had been working at UPS. I worked at UPS for 11 years. And after I graduated from Berklee, I was a full-time musician for about 20 years. And It's something that I love to do. I was self-employed for all that time as a full-time musician, and I just love it. It's just a pleasure to wake up every day doing something that you love to do and that you have a passion for. But in 2010, I did take on a position. I was asked to take on a position at the Al Stevens Performing Arts Center as the programming director. But yeah, music has been the focal point of my life as my work and just as an artist. I've just been full into music for the past 32 years.
See, now we don't found the story. Let me get in there. I heard a couple of nuggets in there. First of all, I don't even want you all to miss the fact that he went to Berkeley. Okay, let's not miss that chat. Let's do that. I mean, okay, now here we go. Now, I heard him say I was self-employed, and then I was at UPS for 10 years. All right, now we got to go inside being at UPS for 10 years. You know, you are a musician, and you at UPS for 10 years. Now, you tell me something, because when your heart is just sitting on the guitar, thinking about the guitar, and you got to go to UPS, talk to me about that, Eric.
It's just a time in my life where I had to have a job, I had to make some money. And I hadn't yet had the courage to get out there as a full-time musician. And so I started working at UPS before I started getting out, gradually playing in different venues and just kind of testing the waters about the music industry. And I stayed there for 10 years until I had the courage to just, pick up, move to Boston and go to Berkeley.
Here's the word that I want to pull out that I heard you say twice. This show is called I Need a Session. And I want listeners and viewers to walk away with something that gives them language that connects them to, oh, that's what it was for me. This is what I can do. And the word that I heard, courage, that's where I want to go. I want to unpack courage a little bit. You know, when I got the courage.
So it did take a level of courage to just walk away from all that and say, you know what, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my degree in music. I'm going to move to Boston, 1,500 miles away from home, totally different culture, because I'm, born and raised in the South, and moved to New England and go to school for 3 years and pursue a music career with no income, basically, just going back to school and just trying to struggle. So it took a lot of courage to say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm up for the challenge. Whatever comes, I'm going to be able to weather the storm. And that's where the courage came. That's where I needed that courage to make that first step. And, hey, I'm a believer, and I knew that God was going to take care of me, and he did. I managed to get a couple more scholarships when I got there to help with my tuition, and got some work when I was there, held down a job, and also had some gigs. So, made it work.
Yeah, fantastic. What I want the viewers to pick up on, a lot of times when we don't have courage, we have fear. So it's like, well, if I let this go, what will happen? And that blocks our courage sometimes. But one of the things that I did here that helped you to pivot was you made a decision. You have to make a decision. And that's how we get to positive outcomes. It's one decision after the other. And if something doesn't work, you keep going. So by the time I hear you say, I got a couple of other more scholarships. Oh, okay. So Eric, you went over there and started focusing. That's what you did.
That's
Oh,
exactly
okay.
Right.
Yes. I mean, so just making a plan. So for all of my young musicians out there, because I think the other thing too, when courage is absent, there's some negative thoughts going on in the background too. Like, there's this thing like, well, you're not going to make enough money as a musician, or you're not going to make what they make. There's a lot of stuff in the backdrop that can really hinder people from just getting to the place that they want to be. And so, and even when I hear you talk about where you are just 29 years later, and just having your own studio, just manifesting all of that, it is what it's supposed to be, what you made it be. And the other thing, I hear your faith. You said, I knew God would.
Absolutely. And I, to your point about fear, I won't tell you that there wasn't a degree, a level of fear after making that decision that, this could go horribly wrong. but my determination was that I was going to be so focused and I wasn't going to let my circumstances or my situation defeat me, just to get that degree and to come out and then be a professional musician. It's really what I wanted to do. And so my desire to fulfill all those things helped me overcome that fear.
Yeah, one of the words my ear just picked up on, overcome. Oh my God, I love that word. I mean, overcome. And the reason why I love the word overcome, because even when you talk about your role as an entrepreneur, what you have to overcome. A lot of times, we say we want to be in charge, we say we want to be the boss, but when you are the boss, when you are the leader of the band, or you are in charge of setting, the price or whatever, you deal with a lot of stuff. Backstabbing, betrayal, it's just a lot of stuff you have to overcome. And it's like your passion, you want to play music. You don't really want to do all of this over here. And it's like, you know what? I'm a little frustrated right now. I want to rip a cord or anything like that. I mean, so talk to me, just like even just being in that space as an entrepreneur and just staying in control and in charge of your opportunities, your gigs, your record deals.
Mhm. I like the words that you use to describe what we do, because we are entrepreneurs, our independent artists and artists who are out there, trying to make a living as musicians. We're entrepreneurs. I try to teach that to young people that I encounter all the time, that this is a business. It's not just something that you do for fun and you get paid for it at the end of the day. There's so many elements of being a musician that encompass knowing something about business, how to deal with taxes, how to save your money, how to make sure you have insurance, and all these things that any entrepreneur would have to deal with, are things that we have to deal with as musicians, and we have to think about those things when we're going into this business. There's a reason they call it the music business. It's a business.
I mean, so I'm turning a little bit. So from what I understand, Eric, you do have some roots in gospel music. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's where I got my start.
Listen, talk to me about that gospel.
Well, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist now, but I started off in the Baptist church. And the thing that I liked about starting off in the church is that you have an audience that is so giving and so forgiving. As a young artist, I wasn't very good, but people would say, how the sisters in the church are, you keep on playing, boy, you're going to, you'll make it, and we love what you're doing, and you keep playing for the Lord, and those kinds of encouraging things and those affirmations for me kept pushing me forward. Those are things that I still have in my music now. If you listen to my catalog, you'll hear gospel music, spirituals, and those kinds of things. It's just a part of who I am.
What's your favorite traditional gospel song?
The hymn "Precious Lord" is
Woo!
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's one that I have performed many, many times. I was fortunate enough when one of my heroes, the great Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, passed away. His wife approached me about playing at his funeral, and one of the things that I consider to be high points in my career was that opportunity to play Precious Lord at his funeral. So it's just one of my favorite hymns. It's just one of those relatable ones that I always go back to. I Surrender All is like one of my favorites. I recorded that one at least twice in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I love the traditional African-American Negro spirituals.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all of that music is some of the most elegant music that has ever been created. And it's so simplistic it's so simplistic in some ways, and then so intricate in other ways, that it's easy to take it as an artist and put your own thing into it and embellish it and amplify it with your own interpretations of that music.
What do you see that presents as challenges for artists, young artists now in the music industry compared to when you were coming? What do you see them doing or not doing that kind of set up challenges in a way for them?
It's an interesting question, because as I talked to other musicians that I came up with, and who have been in the business for many, many years, like myself. I think that I love the fact that there are so many more tools to learn how to play music now that we didn't have when we were coming up. Like we didn't have YouTube. A lot of musicians coming up now can get instruction from YouTube videos. And a lot of those videos out there are really, really good. I wish I'd had tools like that when I was coming up to really just learn about music in ways that couldn't have learned about back then. But one of the things, because of that, I think, is that there's a sense that what we do is easy, that it's simple. You see people on YouTube doing these things, and it's like, oh, I can do that. All I have to do is get a YouTube video. But I think that the amount of time, dedication, and practice, and actually getting out there doing this, playing music in front of people, I think that is somehow not as important these days for younger musicians. And I think that that might be one of the downsides of technology, in a sense, that it was missing from the era that I grew up in when I was playing music. And so I still try to tell young musicians all the time, to study your craft as much as you can. Get with more mature artists and older artists who can tell you about the ropes of the business, because there's so many things that younger artists don't know about actually being in the business, actually about being a musician. How do you succeed? Things that they need to know about how you can maintain your gigs and be professional.
So listen, Eric just gave you two more nuggets. Listen, I'm not gonna let y'all miss this. Number one, I want to pull out the word tools.
Mhm.
Anytime we reach for a tool, we make life a little easier. It doesn't have to be as hard.
Mhm.
There was a time when people was out there cutting that grass with those sling blade.
That's
And
right.
and then next thing you know, they came with a lawnmower and a tractor. And
Mhm.
so what I hear him saying now, in this era, there are tools that can help you. At the same time, do not underestimate the wisdom of the mentor. One of my favorite quotes: buddy up so you can go up.
Mhm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the elders. I mean, I've had to, very often go to people who have been out there in the industry for years for advice. How do you do this, and what do I need to know to be successful here and there? Fortunately, I've had the great opportunities to work with some of the biggest names in the industry who have shared information with me that has been just incredibly valuable. So there's no substitute for that. No substitute for it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I know when you have a career like a musician, your work lives within you.
Mhm.
It goes where you go. And
Mhm.
sometimes you can get so focused. So by the time you start building other relationships and friendships, you're so focused on this, sometimes it becomes difficult to focus on that. And people outside of that, hey, Eric, hey, and so and what they're saying is they want this balance, and sometimes an imbalance can occur because you're so connected and the music is so tied to your identity and your everything. Have you experienced, just through your long career of music, just like, oh, you know what, I may need to, just trying to find that balance and didn't even know there was an imbalance at times?
Such a great question. When I was much younger, and uh, I lived with, of course, my brother, and I had some cousins that were younger who would be at our house all the time when I was younger, and they shared with me the fact that they thought that something was wrong with me when I was younger, because all I wanted to do was close the door to my room and play guitar and listen to music. And, and so I had absolutely no balance back then. It was just all music all the time, 24/7. And I learned as I got older that you have to have a balance between work and your art and relationships, because if you don't, I think that you wind up missing out on life in a lot of ways, because it can't just all be about music and art all the time, because um, I love the word balance. I think that balance is necessary to be a whole person, and be able to work with other people and understand people and just enjoy life and take time. For me, it's the spirituality that is missing if I don't include that in my life, which is very important to me. And I have to have that balance with the spiritual relationships with people, as well as the art. And all of those things influence each other. The spiritual thing influences my art, relationships with people, experiences in life, the different traveling and meeting other people, reading, watching films, and all those things influence my work and my art. So I try to be a balanced individual so that all of those things a holistic approach to the music. And hopefully those things come out in the music, that balance. So I've tried very hard in my career to maintain that and not just be so focused on the music that I'm not a whole person, that I'm not, interacting with everybody and everything around me.
Yeah, everything is connected. Don't be afraid
Yeah,
to travel. Don't be afraid to read. Don't be afraid to cook, because it all comes back together, influence each other. Listen, Eric,
exactly.
he just leveled us up. You just did the session.
I don't want to get in your world now. Stay in my lane.
Hey, that's another one. Stay in your lane. Listen, a lot of times people, they want to focus on what everybody else is doing instead of focusing on what you're doing. If you're on the expressway, you start looking somewhere, you're gonna crash. Maintain your lane. We've had some really
Absolutely.
great tools, focus,
Mhm.
balance. We did all of that. You know,
Mhm.
I can go on and on talking to Eric. I enjoy your conversation. I have got to have you back. Um,
Okay.
what I would like for you to do to take us on out of here. Eric got a video that's out, a late night drive, and he's traveling through the city of Birmingham, Alabama. And when I took a look at the video, I said, "Well, wait a minute, Eric, we in Birmingham?" Well, I mean, cruising.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Eric, set this video up for us, what we're getting ready to see, and the inspiration behind creating this beautiful body of work.
Absolutely. So my latest album is Songs from the Deep, and the deep meaning the deep South. It's all about my experiences growing up in Alabama and in Birmingham. And one of the experiences that I had that was so memorable for me is that when I was a kid, my dad would pile all of us into the car, and for entertainment back then, we would drive around the city of Birmingham at night, have a little music playing and a little soundtrack, and we would drive all around the city. And I learned so much about music then. I discovered one of my favorite albums, which was one by Wes Montgomery, called California Dreamin', on one of those little road trips with my dad. And so when I was thinking about things to write for this album, I started to reflect on some childhood experiences, and that one was the first one, and it's actually the first track on the album, Late Night Drive. And also Back Porch is one where you had all the barbecues and the family get-togethers. And there's a spiritual on this record too called Hold On, and just life experiences growing up in the South and about people. I got one song on there that's about Representative John Lewis, called Walking with the Wind, and Stand. Late Night Drive is the one that I decided would be a good selection for a single. And so in addition to dropping that one as a single, we also did a video.
Well,
And it's all about driving through the city of Birmingham, listening to music. It's got that kind of feel to it.
you are in for a treat to find out more about Eric. go to his website. Eric, give them that website.
It's ericessix.net. And also I'm on Facebook. Go to my artist page on Facebook at Eric Essix, and also on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Fantastic. Be sure to look below for a direct link. He's just one click away.